mean, I've had to work my ass off to find ryes that I like. It's just, it was something, it's not like it's something that comes to me, and there's a lot of bad ryes I've gone through, but at the same time, it's not bad rye. It's just bad to me.
Right.
It does. Yeah. And it's like, I understand that people, when I sit there and it tastes like something that I don't even want to say, but so somebody else,
you have said it many times. I'll thank you not to say it.
I won't say it this time. We're in front of Lisa, so I'm not going to say it.
Act respectable.
Lisa cusses like a sailor. So
okay, so I tasted. So Bob Dylan has his brand of Heaven's Door, right? So I was like, oh look, here's a 3-pack. It's like I'll do that. That's a podcast in a box, right? So I do it. And I taste the rye, and it tastes like urine. It tasted like old man's urine. And I said it.
And we've never gotten a clear answer as to how he knows.
I've told you many times.
Why he knows he's so sure of that taste.
Once again, I don't know the taste. I only know the familiar smell because I am an old man.
I'm not sure if I feel better about that or not.
Anyways, but I totally prefaced it with I don't like rye. It was horrible to me. It tasted like formaldehyde and pee, and it's just like it took everything for me not to like just not get it out.
There are some magnificent.
Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing, and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.
Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Matty Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered, and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus, as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint cream. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
Magnificent ryes out there.
Well, right.
I mean, I love Knob Creek rye. I like Booker's rye. That was what Sandy gave us.
Well, yeah.
That was just out of this world. And Luca Mariano does a fantastic job.
Yeah, but you could kiss my ass. You love rye. So it's like you would you weren't on that podcast. You probably would have liked that. I just didn't. And so I always try and tell
Rye's
everybody.
not for everybody.
No, but I try and tell everybody it doesn't matter what I like. It's what you like. I'm just giving a guide that if you have the similar palate, you might like. But
Well, there's those of us that like rye, and then there's everybody else.
so what do you, Lisa, do you like rye whiskeys?
I
Most
love
of them?
rye.
There
I
you
love
go.
rye.
Yeah.
What's that?
I have been the consulting distiller for George Washington's rye whiskey for 6 years.
Okay, so
this
you
week.
say you love rye whiskey.
So you still are the consulting.
Yeah, 6 years this week. I was
Okay,
there-
but you said I couldn't hear you. You said you love rye whiskey.
Mhm.
I love rye whiskey.
Awesome.
Yeah, which you know
I
what?
have two rye whiskeys. Widow Jane has 2 ryes.
And
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to take them for a ride.
Yeah.
well, we have to be able to get them.
Hint, hint. Not so subtle.
But seriously,
send us little sample
is there
bottles, man.
is there a whiskey that you don't like? I mean, is there, or do you like all whiskeys? I mean, you've had to have all different types.
Yeah, I judge American Craft Spirits Association, right? And sometimes if I don't like a whiskey, if something's well crafted, it's just not my cup of tea. I still like that whiskey if that makes any sense. Right? It's like, well, somebody did a really good job on the fermentation. They did a really great job on the distillation. They did a really great job on the aging process. Maybe it's just not my favorite whiskey, right? But it's a really great whiskey still. The ones that I don't like is when somebody has taken a whiskey and done a poor infected fermentation, and the off flavors in the fermentation, and they thought that they were going to quote unquote clean it up by distilling it. And as my mentor says, bad in, bad out. And
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you take that distillate that smells and tastes funny because the mash smelled and tasted funny. Then you put it in a barrel thinking that's going to fix it. And you're not going to fix it. You need to trash that mash in the very beginning, right? And those are the whiskeys I don't like.
Garbage out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because people have wasted all their time and their money, and they think they're wasting time and money by trashing that bad mash, but it's like, no, you're not going to fix it. You're not going to cover it up with oak. You're not going to cover it up with distillation. It's just not going to be ever going to be a good product.
So they should have called Patrick Heist at about after a day, realizing it was going to shit, and then he would have fixed it for them, and then it would have been all right.
Absolutely.
Isn't it crazy that what yeast shits out and how well it shits it out is based off of how good our whiskey can be? But then again, the same thing, once you distill it, there's a certain aspect of what would you say, what you are respecting as a distiller. And some people try and have some stuff left in as a distiller, and they take it out during the barrel aging process. And then there's other people who properly do it, and they're not worried about what needs to be taken out in the barrel aging process. It's just such a unbelievably artistic, and it is an art of what you're trying to get across. But at the same time, how many people, well, for instance, have you ever been out to what is it? Mount Rushmore, but they got have you ever seen Crazy Horse?
Oh yeah.
So think about that. That's similar.
It's been a few years. Yeah.
But that's similar to what the art of whiskey is, because you're basically working on a project that will span your lifetime. And actually now it'll span 2-3 generational lifetimes before it's finished, which is similar to like whiskey. There's a certain amount of aging that when you start, you don't know what the finished product's going to be, but you have to be, what would you say, diligent and transparent and dedicated to the process so that you can get something that's spectacular.
I would say that is what makes your industry and your craft one of the most difficult in the world to be into, because not only are you thinking about, this is what I'm starting with, what's it going to be like in 4, 5, 6 years or longer, but you're going to be saying, or 10 years or whatever the case may be. And then you're saying, okay, this is where I'm going to get to. Is there going to be the demand? is there,
Oh, yeah.
when I get to that point, is my vision my consumer's vision? That's the thing that I would find daunting, to say the least.
But
yeah, it's gambling like farmers gamble every year, right? Distillers gamble anybody that's in agriculture, whether it's value
But a year versus that is, to me, is amazing.
Now, in wine, the year of the grape matters to the wine. Okay. So we never talk about, I've never heard it talked about, but the year that and the yield of the corn on a really good corn yield, is the corn actually sweeter? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that has to that's never, people besides yourself don't actually understand that you can have a good and a bad corn year, right? As far as yield and sweetness of the corn.
Yeah, dried corn is, kind of one of probably the most consistent things in the distilling process, but absolutely, Dr. Rob Arnold, he's a Kentuckian that was at TX Whiskey, and he's out on his own consulting now, but he wrote a book called The Terroir of Whiskey, and I highly recommend it reading for anyone. It's, it sounds like it's geared for distillers, but it's geared for anybody that's in the whiskey industry, or interested in the whiskey industry. But, it touches on all of those sorts of things, that weather and climate and soil and corn, it all makes a difference, right? Just like grapes,
I would think that if you found the limestone water, you also probably found a good place to plant your corn, I would think.
Yeah.
Right. And then also there's what's been happening in the United States for the last 10, 15 years. And I really believe even the bottom shelf whiskeys have gotten so much better because of that aging process and what's happening across the Midwest or whatever. Yes, the warmth, the warming of what's going on, and then you still have that cold. I just think we're in a cycle where for the last 10, 15 years, you're looking at just dynamic, perfect aging conditions year after year. Whereas some years you can have it I can remember cold summers and I can remember, whatever. But lately it's been hot summers, cold winters, hot summers, cold. And that has just been increasing I just think the quality of the whiskey, and then also the technology of understanding, you can analyze, there's so much stuff you can do as far as analyzing what you're putting out too, that it's just the whiskey just keeps getting better and better. And we just have to, I think the challenge of the whole spirits industry is that as it explodes, because, right now tequila is starting to overtake vodka, and whiskey doesn't even come close to either one of them, but they've actually reclaimed and gotten a little bit more of the market that they had lost in the 70s and 80s. But overall, we just don't want to have people just laying in the streets drunk like they did it, in the early 1900s. That's the goal, just to make everybody
or the early 1980s,
drink responsibly.
Yeah. Whatever the case may be,
So we're getting close to finishing. Do you have, so this is the 14 year we're drinking.
Yeah.
So
it needs to open up a minute.
Okay, we've opened it up. Yes.
It needs a few minutes.
Now,
It does bloom and develop. Yeah.
This definitely is more it's got more of a hot or a spicy to it, but it's quite good. I mean, it's really good.
It
came out of COVID. I had COVID in March 2020, right? And lost my taste and smell. And I didn't tell anyone. And my son-in-law was bringing me dinner every night, and he's ridiculously talented chef, right? And I'm in quarantine in my home there and in Kentucky, and I lost my taste and smell. And I told him, I said, I'm so grateful for what you're doing, but don't bring me any more food because it was breaking my heart. I couldn't taste or smell what he was bringing me. And still every couple of days, he's like, oh, I'm still going to bring you something. Right. It's like, oh my gosh. And so I get online and I find all these things about people that lose their taste and smell after they've had a stroke. Right. And start working through some of that. And, quite concerned, right? I think I've just lost my livelihood, but it started coming back. Somebody brought me some lilacs at Easter, and I walk into my sunroom and it's like, oh my gosh, it was fleeting, but I could smell them, right? And then the next day I could smell them a little bit more and a little bit more, and things were coming back okay. And I had another round of vaults to blend, and I blended that vaults, and we had the highest scoring vault, the highest score that we've ever had. We had a 94 with Whiskey Advocate. And my boss calls me and he's like, how bad was it? I'm like, how bad was what? And he's like, did you lose your taste and smell? I said, I did. I said, I didn't tell anyone because I was scared to death, but I had that 94 and like, things are okay.
Well,
yeah. But I work at it every day. I'm actually more diligent than I've ever been. I go through everything. We were discussing it at work today. I don't even buy, I love my French roast coffee beans, right? But I buy all these different roasts now. I buy oily roast and dry roast and greener beans and everything else, because not just smelling coffee in the morning, but I'm going to smell all the coffees, right? And I'm going to smell all the teas. I've been drinking a lot more tea because there's so many more things that are going on in it. I have this line of extracts, at work. There's some things I made myself and some things I purchased commercially, but it's but the vaults was, thank God for the vaults, right? I was able to put it together and prove that we were over COVID. Yeah.
This definitely has an aspect of there's a kick to it. Put it this way, it's a perfect balance of bourbon and rye mix. Now, this is just my opinion. I don't know what you mixed it with, or
There's no
what.
rye.
There's not rye whiskey, but like a higher rye bourbon. Is there a higher rye bourbon in there?
No.
No, it's the barley malt.
I'm just picking up
the malt that's used.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just got more spice. There's no doubt about it.
But
it's got the sweet
hot spice, but you don't taste the pond water of rye.
No, I'm not tasting like no, it's not a bad rye. It's not, it's the spice aspect of it.
Pond water, a tasting note.
Yes, pond water.
Well,
yes,
some rye whiskeys, as much as I love rye, you get the same.
Oh, I know the note you're talking about.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Pond water. It's like celery. I'm not a fan of celery because it tastes like. It tastes like what my live well smells like after I've had bass in it.
But you like rye, and
I like good rye for
except
I love venison too, but it's got to be prepared.
Do you like bullet rye? So bullet rye is exactly the kind of rye I don't like. It's got that, to me, it's got a celery taste.
Yeah, it does. It does have a little.
So that's where, for whatever reason,
the holy grail of rye so far is Luca Mariano rye. Though that's
I'm sorry,
the Booker's rye.
Have you ever tasted yet Buzzard's Roost? They just released the bourbon. I'm trying to get a hold of the bourbon, but I just got a bottle of Buzzard's Roost rye, and it was $65, and I'm like, I should really buy this. It was like I don't buy rye, okay, but something was telling me to buy it, and it's actually delicious. It's got the sweet notes that it needs to have to counteract the celery aspect of it. So, everybody's palate's complex. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, there's so many ryes and bourbons out there. You should just drink what you like, correct? Yeah. Okay. So we're down to the 15. I'm going to pour that. It's over here. So what's up with the 15?
Just give me a tiny.
Yeah, the 15. Read the back label on that one.
All right, give me
If you'll read the back label, I can tell you which cooperage it was rebarreled in.
good.
All right. I'm going to taste it in the Widow Jane.
You know, there was something you were talking about there, Jeff, and I realized that a tree grows longer than 15 years. But with the extreme cold and extreme heat, that certainly affects the quality of the wood you're getting for your barrels too.
Yeah.
The rings on it are a lot farther apart.
And
if you put a piece of a barrel stave up against a barrel stave from 15 or 20 years ago, it's really interesting, the difference in the pattern.
They're further apart now, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
well,
Warmer temperatures and they're growing faster.
yeah. Are you familiar with Greg Schneider, who distills chicken cock?
Chicken cock.
I know, Greg. Yeah.
Yes, he goes down to the West Virginia cooperage, and
Yeah,
he basically
great.
he picks those staves based off of the oak growing on the shade side.
Whether it's
of
on the
it,
north side of
yeah.
the Blue Ridge or the south side, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, he's really into that, like heavy.
he's going
It's
straight up.
fascinating to listen to.
But once
'cause
again,
he can really describe.
It's why I use that cooperage, because they've been using the same stave mill for years and years. Bert Zeimlich, right? He used to run the Brown Forman cooperage and then went out on his own and opened Zach cooperage. And now his son and grandson run it, Bruce and Zach. And but that's that consistency of wood and those old growth trees, and that stave mill is where they source everything, and they've been working with them for years. So my flavor profile is consistent.
so and explain to the viewers how important,
Or listeners is the case.
the listeners and viewers, yes, how important the sugars in the wood, and then also what char do you use on your barrels?
We have a one of a kind char. We have a heavy toast. I tell them to toast the hell out of it, right? And then we have a 3.5 char.
Okay.
So higher the char, longer you want to let that whiskey lay in the barrel, right? And
Right.
it's so 3.5 seemed like a good number, right?
What the heck?
Yeah.
It's like
It's odd number, and it may even be prime.
no, it just defines Lisa. she basically went with something that nobody else goes with. It's a little bit longer than 3, not as much as 4, and
3.5
it makes it unique, right?
You're like the Russian judge,
I literally couldn't make up my mind. And so that's where we settled in.
So you just settled in between. Yes.
And they said, sure. Okay. Okay.
I always talk about it's like men will make decisions. If you've ever noticed, they make decisions and they will make them on the spot, right or wrong. But women will always think about their decisions, and then there's a certain amount of decisions that the overthinking even is as bad as the man's poor decisions that they make on the spot. But the decisions that they really think out and go are just as good as, you know what I mean? It's
So
just like,
before you think we forfeited all of our testosterone, there's an old saying, and that's a good decision today beats a great decision tomorrow. So
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Remember, it's International Women's Day. Be nice to me today.
no, I'm being totally nice to you. My wife,
I have no
the
doubt that
decisions
you
that we
have
make,
more decision-making capability in your big toe than I have in my entire body.
Exactly.
Make no mistake. I meant no disrespect.
no,
on
there
that.
was no disrespect.
Yeah.
My wife, when it comes to choosing a restaurant, that's where that is a problem. But that's just choosing. But when it comes to running the household, she always makes the.
But
right
you know, this
decision.
Women's Day thing, excuse me. I've got 2 older sisters. I've been married for almost 38 years. I thought every day was Women's Day. I mean, silly me.
Exactly. Because definitely there's no doubt that a thought out decision, there's no doubt 100% that the majority of the decisions should be thought out. But men will make a decision and they'll just stand by what it is. And that's just
exactly.
it.
We don't need to stop and ask for directions.
It's just like,
Hell no.
It's just ask us a question. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. So I wasn't being mean to you at all. I was
No,
being
not at
mean
all,
To
not at
myself,
all.
I
I
definitely
respect-
diverse.
Yeah.
And you've produced some fantastic.
yeah, we don't even come close.
whiskeys.
So rest assured.
There's no doubt. And respect everything that you've done. I mean, it's what you've done in this industry to lay down the grounds for future women distillers and women blenders and that type of thing. It's like you've opened everybody's eyes.
Yeah.
There's
and then we haven't even talked about 15 yet.
That
This
is
stuff
very,
awesome.
that's very kind of you, but there's a lot of women before me and there'll be a lot of women after me. And it's just
So
about
for those of us
Yes.
that are stupid,
Mhm.
where does the name Widow Jane come from? What's
Widow
the story
Jane
behind that?
comes from upstate New York. It comes from the community where our mine is. There's actually a mine called Widow Jane. We do not get our water out of the Widow Jane mine. We just get our name. It's local folklore. And we all know folklore is based on a truth, but she was a woman that was in a man named A.J. Snyder. He owned the mines where the water is, right? And where they mined the limestone out of. And apparently, as folklore goes, he was a really horrible human being. And there was this woman in his life who was very kind and very sweet, and her name was Widow Jane. And our nickname was Widow Jane. So
Was she a widow because she did away with the SOB?
there's lots of funny stories, right? There's some, like I said, it's folklore, so you can kind of take it and go wherever you want to. But everyone upstate agrees she was a woman in this gentleman's life. But no one quite agrees on what
actually happened.
whether
What
it's sister,
transpired there? Okay.
yeah, sister, wife, mistress, there's all kinds of, stuff, right?
You're right there with what Alan Bishop does down at the Spirit of French Licks with all the Indiana folklore that goes on. I mean, it's just
I helped Alan get started too. I wrote a letter so he could be legitimate at Copper and Kings. And then when French Lick called and said, "Lisa, do you know anybody?" I called him again, and he took the job there. Yeah,
and he's awesome, just like you. It's just like that. Good people always get together, right? And then this industry, what I've everything that I've seen, from large family distilleries to the smaller little distilleries, everybody is willing to help everybody. Everybody
I've never
talks
seen
to
that.
everybody.
And the people in this industry, every person, man or woman, are just nice. I have not met the first surly, unpleasant individual yet. And I've worked in a lot of industries. I've worked in construction. I have worked in IT. I've worked with a lot of judges and prosecutors and sheriff's deputies and the sheriffs themselves and everything. And by and large, most of them are very good people to work with. But in the bourbon industry, I have not met one person who I would not want to work with, have a conversation with, who hasn't been helpful, who hasn't been understanding of, my own ignorance to some of the questions I ask. And that's what I think. It's just a great group of people. It's unbelievable.
That's my wife, but I will just don't know. My wife is
we can talk to her.
My wife is a midwife, and she was off at a birth, and so she was on her way home, and she's probably thinking the podcast was over, but it's not.
Yeah, it is. No, everything you're saying about the people, it's just been, I thought winemaking was great, lots of great winemakers, but no, everyone's so generous in this business. I can't wait till next week, the James Beebe Institute's next week. And
and the thing is, I made reference to my father was Italian. I'm first generation Italian American. I used to get mad when he would tell me about my friends that he'd met for a minute, and he'd say, "This is somebody you want to stay away from," or whatever. Of course, I've now inherited that ability. I can look somebody up and down and decide what they're all about. And all that being said, everybody that I've met in this industry isn't somebody there's nobody that's given me a negative vibe of any kind. They're just some really great people.
So James Beebe Institute. Go into that a little bit.
It's next week. It's University of Kentucky. It's the third year they've done it. I've been too busy in the last 2 years to be able to participate, but workshops, right? Vendors, workshops. Monday's a master distiller luncheon that's closed to the press and closed to everyone. So that's really exciting for me. Yeah, so I'll be able to reconnect. I'll be able to meet people I haven't met before and be able to reconnect with some of the distillers that I admire. And
so that's through the beam, what they set up at that's just the whole, the actual collegiate aspect of distilling, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I've seen initially.
Acceptable.
Yeah, initially I saw when Freddie was up there talking and everything, setting that up. It's like that sounds fantastic, especially if you're getting all the distillers together. And why the hell not? It's like the one thing, and you'll have to agree with me because you can't disagree with me on this one particular point. There's no matter how much everybody makes, they can't make enough.
Yeah.
And that's where there's how many
insane.
Industries can you say that?
Yeah,
you can't say
and
that.
And I've told the story before. It's like when we were at Maker's Mark. I asked the lady, they were talking about a new expression that were coming out. I said, don't you worry about, you come out with this new expression, don't you worry about it cannibalizing your other product. And she says, no. She said the average bourbon drinker, it's like he doesn't just buy this one or this one. He buys both. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah. And so
it's unbelievable.
So you guys aren't all competing against each other.
People ask me all the time about the competition. I said, no one can make enough whiskey right now. So
yeah, because of that aging process and doing it good. Now, if someone makes bad whiskey, like you said, it becomes obvious, especially right now, because the average whiskey drinker is so much more educated.
Exactly.
But they love the process. So you fall in love with the process and then you fall in love with whiskey. And it's
also, as a producer too, so even like this thing next week, we're all still learning. And that's the other thing I love about it. I have not the people that I admire the most in the industry. No one's a know-it-all. They always have questions for you. I have questions for them. Right. And we're all getting better at what we do. It's not like it got to a certain place and it's like, okay, well, we know how to make whiskey now, so we're not going to change anything. Everybody's always curious on, pushing the envelope and improving their equipment, improving their staffs, improving their,
well, even the big people.
Processes and so all of us, even the big guys, everybody's getting better every day.
The big guys are looking at the little guys because that's a market. Craft distilling's a market, and the craft distillers are trying to become bigger. So it just makes sense for everybody to get together. There's no
we're a few years behind beer because beer, years ago, the big guys didn't pay any attention to the craft beer producers, right? And then all of a sudden they took 11% market share and everybody woke up.
Well, yeah. It's because they were more responsive to, like what Jeff was saying, is you're dealing with a much more highly educated consumer base than you ever did.
But I look at the craft beer makers similar to the automotive industry that happened. It's like when you're putting out where you've gotten to the point where the industry is just putting out a bunch of shit. And then all of a sudden some people start looking at craft beer where they started to put out something better than a bunch of, how bad was Miller and Budweiser and Bud Light and Miller Lite, which was dominating the market, which was just basically shit beer. And all of a sudden they started putting out these craft beers, and that took part of the marketplace because people were sick and tired of just drinking water. But in the whiskey industry, that happened in the 70s. That's already done. It's like, and what made them all wake up was the vodka, the fact that vodka and tequila could just put whiskey in its place is ridiculous, right?
It's
Certainly
ridiculous.
vodka. I can
Because-
understand tequila. A good tequila is like a good absinthe. It's rare and it's really well appreciated.
Yeah, but still, it's a mass. You drink it in huge quantities with a lemon.
you usually
and salt.
drink it. Well, yeah, or you're drinking it.
Yeah, you're
in a
just
margarita,
drinking.
of course.
You're drinking to get
And with the
shit
popularity of Mexican food the last 25, 30 years or longer, 40 years, I should say, that's
Whiskey has
driven
its
the demand for tequila.
yeah, but whiskey has its place in drinking shots. There's 3 levels of whiskey: shots, drinking just whiskey, and then appreciating whiskey and in a tasting capacity or
And
relaxing.
you left out level 4, getting through the 2020 shit show.
Which we're all getting through, correct?
Right. But we're still having PTSD from it.
Now, are you seeing a bump in sales now that we're getting through everything?
We've bumped sales for 4 years.
We never stopped. Yes,
That's awesome.
yes,
Great.
That's great.
Congratulations.
And so going forward,
that didn't happen by accident.
so
we
what's
know.
what? So last question: what's it like in New York right now? Are you guys unmasked and working together? Are you still masked up and everything?
We're still masked. I mask because I choose. I like try to cut my odds. If I'm only around a couple of people, I was at Mount Vernon this weekend, we're doing some tastings, and actually my son lives in DC and is a whiskey guy too. And so he came out and we were tasting through some of the George Washington barrels. In situations like that, I'm not masked, but overall, because I taste and smell for a living, I can't go through what I went through before. I cannot lose my taste and smell. So from this day forward, I will always be masked on a plane during cold and flu season.
Your son should start mom challenge coins. Who has the coolest mom? And he lays down Distiller. He wins a free drink every time. Oh
Okay.
my God.
Okay, I would admit to masking on a plane.
Right.
I'm for that. But when you get to the distillery, you're tasting.
We're still masked right now because New York. I don't know if you've heard the rumblings in the last 24 hours. There's another variant, and New
Yeah, I
York's-
think the variant's called communism, but that's my own opinion.
Yeah, but the distillery, we're in New York and people travel, and New York's the first place to get whatever is happening in the rest of the world, right? And so we're still masked. I've talked to my team about it, whether they want to stay masked or whether they we want to drop them for a little bit. And everybody universally, every last one of my people want to stay masked. And part of it is because in New York, you frequently live with lots of roommates, or you live with your extended family. We've had, a team member that lost a parent recently, and the person was young, the mother was young. And, so really, I think that early on, it was such shock here. It was so crazy, with the temporary morgues in the middle of the street and the sirens going all the time that, you mentioned PTSD. So everybody seems to want to stay masked.
Yeah,
And so
we didn't see that much of that here, but I know it's going on, and I know it's a very, very real disease. So I can understand why you would choose to be masked. I wore a mask, because it was kind of like, even when I wasn't sure about it, it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah. My head bartender my head bartender has toddler twins, and they can't be vaccinated.
I've got a 93-year-old mother, so I wasn't in the, my goal was not to infect her,
Right.
so.
I went through the similar thing last when I came back from Kentucky Bourbon Festival. It was 2 weeks later. I ended up having COVID, but I got symptoms that were pretty much took me apart mentally. So after I started, like 2 weeks after, I wasn't feeling good. And then on 3 or 4 days later, I lost my taste and smell. By the full week, taste and smell was gone. And then for the next 2 weeks, I ended up having the COVID toes where they were numb and cold. and I couldn't sleep, and mentally it took me apart way more than when I was sick.
You didn't get your taste back till at least Thanksgiving.
So yeah, so that happened in October, and then November is when I started getting my taste and smell back. And then I got it back for about a month. And then I've been what happened is, for whatever reason, I ended up with thrush and a yeast problem. So I started taking medication for yeast, and that affected my taste and smell. So I'm finally in March now starting to get my full taste and smell back. And like you said, you're sitting here on a whiskey podcast and you're trying to do a whiskey podcast. It's like, oh, okay, let's talk about history. We're not talking about drinking whiskey. And tonight, the 15-year, that smells really delicious. And so the same thing that you went through, it's something that you need and you don't want to get it again. And I understand, especially you guys living in New York. That's why I asked about it, because New York is a whole different ballgame.
Well, you're talking about a seething mass of humanity wherever you go.
Right.
Yeah, where people live on.
Right. We've dropped all the mask mandates here. We've dropped the vaccine cards and everything. But my staff, anybody that's forward facing, is still choosing to wear a mask. So, and like I said, I have no.
And isn't that America? That's what it should be. If you choose to do it, you should be able to do it.
Exactly.
And I agree with that 100%.
So do I.
You know,
and what I've discovered on the plane too, if you fall asleep, you don't have to worry about your mouth hanging open and drooling, and
yeah, but on a plane, I
like napping with a mask on.
Got to tell you a very quick story about planes. About 10 years ago, my wife and I, we had some tickets that we were flying standby. We were trying to get out to Vegas for a quick weekend. Vegas is like our go-to destination. We love Vegas. And anyhow, it turned out that the plane we were wanting to get on, which was like a 6:05 flight or something just insanely early, there was only one available seat. So I told her to go ahead and go, that I would get there sooner or later. If I didn't get there by mid-afternoon, I would buy a ticket and, a guaranteed ticket and get on. So anyhow, I started talking with the very nice attendant at the gate, and she said, I got something for you here. She goes, I've got a couple of drink coupons. You can use those on any one of your flights or whatever. Great. Thank you very much. So as it turns out, they come to, I said, when's the next flight that's not full? She said noon. So as it turns out, the very next flight, which was supposed to leave like at 7:50 or 8:05, I don't remember the time, somebody didn't show up. All of a sudden, I'm called to the gate, and I got on with my standby ticket. And I thanked her very much for what she did for me. We sit down. They come by with the cart. Because we have drink service now. It's like, oh, cool. I'll have a double Jim Beams. And it's like I'm not even looking at my watch. So I get my drink, and I start sipping on it. I'm looking at the people beside me are kind of looking at me, and they look away. And the people across the aisle are looking at me, and they look away. And the people around on the cornered on the seat ahead of us across the aisle, they're looking back at me. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then I looked at my watch. And I realized it's 7:40 in the morning, and I'm having a double Jim Beams. It's like, you're a derelict win.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So quickly before we finish, go into the 15-year. I mean, this is spectacular.
There's 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-old.
The 15-year is exquisite. I finished mine already.
Now, just so you know, Super Nash is the one that sends me all the samples. So I'll have to talk
Bourbon
about 16,
Claws.
17, and 18 with him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm getting ready to work on another vaults, and we did the barrel planning today, and we're going to go backwards to 14-year. Because my spread is even bigger. I have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-old whiskey going.
Holy mackerel.
Wow. So when can we be invited to the distillery to come? I mean, it's only 7 and a half.
We want to come to New York and podcast with you.
Yeah, because I know
have
how
some
far.
good Brooklyn pizza and wash it down with your bourbon.
Do you, speaking of pizza in Brooklyn, what is it? Fazio's?
I don't know.
DeFario's.
I don't
No?
know it.
No,
Mm-mm.
it's the older guy.
I only live like a 5-minute walk to Locali's. Look up Locali's. It's like the best pizza restaurant in New York City.
Then that's
Yeah.
where we're going when we come to podcast with you.
Yes.
You
yes.
are going to be inviting us, right?
They do not take reservations. You have to go get in line at 4:00 in the afternoon, in hopes of getting a table at 8 p.m. My chef's son-in-law knows enough people, and enough people have been to the restaurant in Bardstown that last time they were here, we were able to pull off a 6:00 reservation. But yeah, it's worth it. You know, I've eaten there a handful of times now, but
We'll just tell them we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, and we're going to be podcasting from
Yeah,
the restaurant.
Yeah,
That's all there is to it, you know. But yeah, that would be just that would be a hoot. That would be great.
Yeah.
I just love the Red Hook district. There's no doubt about it. As you know,
New York Times just published an article. Red Hook is everyone in New York's favorite neighborhood.
Yeah, but at the same time, to be able to run a distillery out of Red Hook is a challenge in itself, right?
Do you happen to know where Red Hook got its name from? I mean, that conjures up a rather gruesome image.
No, the Dutch founded it, and that was actually Red Hoek, Hoek, and translated into Red Hook, because of the way that the land juts out and actually, you know, like looks like a hook, right? I don't know where the red came from. I don't know if there was a red tide or something. I have no idea.
Probably a red tide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it was settled by the Dutch. In fact, where I am, you know, because I'm not right next to the water, but I'm just a block away. I can hear
all of New York. I mean, Amsterdam, it was all Peter Stuyvesant.
Yeah, there was all windmills through here, you know. They built up all the windmills.
Peter
and everything.
Minuet, Manhattan, and all that stuff.
So where you live, you don't have to take a ferry to, right? You're right there.
Right.
You live
I'm right here. Yeah, I'm right here. But yeah, the ferries are just like right over there. So you could take a ferry to Wall Street for $2.75. You can come out of it.
Well, my daughter lived in Brooklyn, and she's like, we'll take the ferry to Manhattan, then we'll take it to the Red Hook. And I'm like, why are we doing this? She's like, 1, it's cool, and 2, it's faster.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Then when we left, we took a taxi, and she proved it.
Yes. Yeah. Because I actually live at the entrance, really close to the entrance of the Battery Tunnel, you know, so I should probably not be saying all this on here, right? But yeah, I only live just over a mile from work.
Okay.
Nice.
Wonderful.
The Columbia Waterfront District. Yeah, it's great.
You're right there on the Upper Bay. Yeah.
You have all of New York at your disposal, right?
I can see Lower Manhattan from my bedroom window. It's really lovely. Yeah, it's pretty.
Now, how often do you have time to go to Manhattan?
Not as with COVID. I just don't go there very much anymore, right? You know,
I see the Statue of Liberty from your bedroom window too, right?
The Statue of Liberty is a block. If you go a block and a half from the distillery, there's something called the Valentino Pier, and you have a completely unobstructed view of the Statue of Liberty. It's one of the few places that you get to look at her face, because she faces the water, and she faces the entrance to the harbor. And yeah, we have an amazing view of the Statue of Liberty.
My father was 7 years old when he came over from Italy, and he never knew his dad, because his dad left when he was little to make money to send for his mom and his older sister. I've got a picture of their passport. And he says the thing that he remembers the most is when they came into the lower bay and then up into the upper bay, was seeing the Statue of Liberty. And he had a little sailor's cap wearing it, and he stood up on a stand or a table to get a look at the Statue of Liberty, and the wind blew his hat away and it landed in the bay, you know. And that was funny. He came over in 1929. By 1939, he starred on a state championship football team, offense and defense. By 1949, he was a combat veteran of World War II and a college graduate and married. So in 20 years coming to this country, that's how his life changed.
Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
America, right?
It's America, the greatest country ever.
And we
Yeah.
keep, and we
My dad was a pilot in World War II. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was in the Navy. He was on a destroyer escort, and he was in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean and the Pacific.
Yeah.
Interesting.
excellent.
There's New York is a very special place. I miss Bardstown every day, and then I get to Bardstown and miss New York every day.
My dad said of all the places he was been, he said the worst place you can go is New York, and the best place you can go is New York,
And
is what he said. He said if you knew where you were going and what you wanted to do, there was no place on the earth that you could party like New York City.
oh yeah.
Well, you can be anything you want to be here. It's really interesting. I meet all these people here in Brooklyn, and everybody's doing something insanely interesting. Yeah.
And my dad, though, he had dropped his accent after coming here. After 2 years, he didn't have an accent, but he was still fluent in Italian. So obviously that helped him in places like New York, because there was no language barrier.
Yeah, this is a still a very Italian neighborhood that I live in right here.
Well, what I find about New York is it's just like the young people. There's so much going on for the young people.
I have to be the oldest woman down here. Yeah.
Right. And they are unaffected by so much, but at the same time in New York, it's just like it's all happening.
When I run into a woman like my age on the street, we both we give each other like a knowing smile, right? Like
It's like you should just give her a high five, right?
Well, just calculating what your age would be from what you've said versus how you look, not trying to blow smoke up your backside or anything, but you don't look anywhere near your age. So
thank you.
I have to agree.
Have I passed to the other side of 60? Yes, I have.
But you do not look like you've passed the other side of 60.
Thank you.
You look fantastic. And you have been producing some fantastic whiskey.
60's the new 40.
I hope so. I'm counting it. My mentor is well up into his 70s and he's still working. Dave Sherrick, he's the gentleman that put Woodford Reserve back together. And, he picks and chooses his projects now, but, he calls and we talk about work, right? He's still working. And
you have to introduce me to him, because does he have something to do with Woodford Double Oaked?
No, he does not, but he was with Woodford. He unshuttered Woodford. He and now the house that's across the street that's part of their visitor experience was that he and his wife built that home, and they spent the next gazillion years like living across the road, and he restored Woodford Reserve. Whiskey Advocate Lifetime Achievement Award winner, and and he's an unsung hero in the industry. He knows everyone. He worked at Seagram's, he worked at Royal Turkey, was at Woodford, distilled with Lincoln Henderson, and it's got more stories than he's always got a story, right? But we he calls and he talks about his projects and I talk about this project, and we still talk work all the time, right? And
well, you have to be associated with those people in the industry because they understand the industry, where so much of the industry is sales and marketing. But at the same time, if he didn't do what he did, it wouldn't have held, right? It's like you have to produce some good damn whiskey to make it hold. And everybody is, what's happened at Woodford Reserve, and you go there, and that's just like the whole visitor experience, the whole overall. And usually they don't have a lot of the different Woodford Reserves, but it still makes you feel special, right?
Yeah.
Now, once again, that you've put your distillery on the direction we want to go as Scotchy Bourbon Boys, because we definitely want to get there. There's no doubt about it.
And we have another expression to taste, and that's going to be my favorite, I'm sure, the maple infusion.
So let's just finish this off and we'll do the maple infusion, right?
Yes.
Boy, you have a lot of different whiskeys, don't you?
Before you before you taste too, the Decadence, my goal with the Decadence was to have a standalone whiskey blend and then barrel it. I'm not trying to cover up any bad whiskey. I'm not trying to, I don't know. Anyway, that was my goal, to the point that my warehouse manager said to me a couple
I think that was an
batches ago, he's like, are you sure you want to put this in these maple syrup barrels? Because he goes, Lisa, this is one of the best blends you've ever done. Like, yes, put it in the barrels.
In my opinion, you should have put it in there.
But I wanted to say,
Xavier's-
I am holding my fire till I taste it. I mean, it may be good. I may like it.
This is it. We'll hold it up.
but yeah, we can't keep it in stock. Like I said, it is sold out across the country. So we're trying to pull it together again. But
How many bottles?
I do 18 to 21 barrels. I can't remember how many bottles.
Holy mackerel. I get the maple syrup smell,
You get
which
Mrs.
every now and then, believe it or not, in spite of all of that BS, about once every couple of years, I get this weird hair up my backside that I got to have pancakes with maple syrup, even though I don't like
he
it.
never
I want
admitted that.
taste.
That's new.
That's new. But I mean, I'm not a fan of it, but sometimes I like, so I smell maple syrup, definitely.
I smell Mrs. Buttersworth.
Why smell it?
That's not real maple syrup.
I know, but it's still it's
Yeah.
Leave your
it's
personal
maple
life out of
syrup
it.
with
I mean-
butter added in. It's definitely corn. What is whiskey? It's corn, right?
Right.
And
right.
Mrs. Buttersworth is corn syrup.
Oh, it's maple syrup.
No, Mrs.
No, it's
Buttersworth is
corn
corn syrup.
So it's
100%.
Caro syrup, is what you're saying.
Yeah, oh yeah, Mrs. Buttersworth is not pure maple syrup.
No,
there's
it's
some.
not.
There's probably about 2%, right?
I was going to say one, but okay, I'll give you
Okay.
two.
Okay.
Okay, Lisa.
It's damn good whiskey, right?
It is fucking damn good whiskey.
Holy shit!
It's really good. And I only use that because you said you swear like a sailor, so I figured it wouldn't bother you.
That is delicious. I mean, there's no other way to. You said
That's really good.
I am honored that you sent me a
It's
whole
not
bottle.
an overpowering, tie your tongue in a knot, sickening sweet maple taste. It's a good balanced sweet taste from the tip of your tongue all the way through to your back palate and onto the finish. That's really good. I really like it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm glad I won you over. Yeah.
You did. I'm a convert.
The nose is spectacular.
The nose is spectacular, and the taste, it's
Whiskey. Yeah.
How many barrels did you use to make this batch?
18 to 21.
what's the proof on this?
91.
And then
got a
where
good
did
finish for
what
91.
kind of maple syrup
Good hug.
barrels were they?
Crown maple syrup. They're upstate New York. And for years they were using our barrels to age their maple syrup, and we just reversed the process.
Okay, so this is
go back and forth.
bourbon barrel aged maple syrup,
Uh-huh.
maple syrup barrel barrels.
I get maple on the nose, but I would not have picked out maple on the taste. I pick out just a good, uniformly sweet. You should love this because you like sweeter stuff. This is
could
really
pour this,
good.
I could pour this on my fucking French toast. I could. Seriously, this is delicious.
Thank you.
Now, I opened this early in the week so that it was properly eliminated the neck pour, and it has in 2-3 days opened up to be fantastic.
Thank
It
you.
was good the first time, but it is fantastic.
What does
now.
this retail for a bottle, Lisa?
I am the worst person to ask on pricing. You'll have to email me and I'll have to get back to you.
Okay,
That's fine.
Is it over $100 or under?
It's under.
Okay, then it's worth it.
Mhm.
So what's
And even if it's just slightly over 100, it's worth. That's a really delicious bourbon.
So you're at 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-old?
In the Decadence, much younger. Yeah.
No, not the Decadence, but overall, as far as Widow Jane.
Yeah, Widow Jane, everything I'm blending for all the products is between 10 and 19 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is so good. That is like a dessert bourbon. This is something you would have after you've eaten a big meal and you want to sit back with some friends and you're going to chew the fat.
Steak with some steak fries.
Some steak fries, of course,
And
some
some-
shrimp,
That sounds
some
delicious.
asparagus.
Some shrimp. Okay.
Yeah, and that would be good. And then you've downed all that, and now you're sitting back, fat, dumb, and happy, and you're going to have some bourbon. That's the bourbon to have.
His
Oh my
is
God.
gone. It's actually gone.
That's outstanding.
And this is a man who doesn't like maple syrup.
Well, the
That's
bourbon,
fantastic.
it's not the sickening sweet that I remember of maple candy. It's not the bitey, so terrible sweet that I remember of Jack Daniels back in the day. No.
Yeah, except
And
just,
it's such a uniformly sweet. There's no wood, there's no bitterness, and it's from tip of tongue to finish. It's that uniformly nice, pleasant, sweet taste. It's really delicious bourbon.
so last question. What have you been sipping on the whole night? Wine, whiskey,
Cabernet, right? No.
Elijah Craig.
Elijah Craig. Oh my God.
So then talk about that. Just the final aspect is you guys have been purchased by the company that produces Elijah Craig. Is this just straight up small batch?
Yes, it is. And because it's funny, because I didn't even remember that I had it in my cabinet here, because most of my whiskey's in Kentucky. But the cabinet's full, the floor's full again. It doesn't matter where I live. It's always full of whiskey.
Yeah.
And I was doing a tasting the other night. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a bottle of Elijah Craig in my cabinet. And so I pulled it out, and I've made a pretty good done in it over a couple nights. But Heaven Hill doesn't buy distilleries, they buy brands, they buy labels. And so we're really honored to be
part of them.
Yeah, they're good people. And I really have appreciated the conversations we've had so far, and I'm really looking forward to what's to come. But all the people, but I knew people were kicking the tires, on occasion. I didn't know who it was, but then when I found that it was Heaven Hill, it's like, oh my gosh, because I live so stinking close to them in Bardstown, right? And it's like, of all the people that buy distilleries, right, it's felt right since the second that I heard who it was. And
good deal.
The one thing about Heaven Hill is 100% they're business savvy with the ability to understand what good bourbon is. And
they're so solid. They're just so solid, and anyway, like I said, I've been over the moon ever since I found out.
So we look forward to what's going to happen, because I honestly think you're at the beginning of your journey. You have what would you say? Your baby. Widow Jane would be your baby, correct?
Widow Jane, there's just not another project like it. I have been offered other opportunities, since I've been here and been on this project. I have never been so frustrated and so rewarded at the same time, right? There's been so many battles we've had to fight, and things from the city, and you name it, we've had our things to do. And but there's something really addictive about it, right? There's something about this project that's just not like anything else. And when other people start to talk to you, like, but do you have this and you have this? Like, we have a cave.
Exactly.
Yeah, do you have a cave? I know. and they always say no. And no, I'm just joking. But yeah, it's just such a remarkable project. And I've been really, I think my boss recently, I said, thank you for taking a chance on me, because they took a big chance, hiring me to do this project. And, I
don't think they took a big chance on you. Seriously.
Okay.
I think they knew what they were getting into.
Seriously.
I don't think they knew what they were getting into.
You 100% are distilling, because when you get the right distillers, and I've met a lot of them, it's not like you're taking a chance on them. They just know. And you know your palate, you know what you're doing, and 100% they are blessed for getting you opposed to you getting them. And
I agree. Any situation you're in, Lisa, all you got to do is give anybody who's questioning your credentials a flight of 13, 14, 15 in Decadence in order. And and there's two kinds of people on this earth: people that are going to love it, and liars.
Put it this way: you just converted a person who's not very happy with maple syrup. Put your bourbon in a maple syrup.
Fucking taste like maple syrup.
I know it.
Read my lips.
It doesn't. God. But you put it in a maple syrup barrel and produce something that the person who doesn't like maple syrup
is
likes.
Enthralled with it.
Think about that. Yes. Think about that concept. It's just like it is delicious, but you have to. All I can say is I've met a lot of distillers, and just keep trusting yourself, because you're right there.
Yep. Just remember, roses are red, violets are purple, sugar is sweet, and so is maple syrup.
That's seriously the best thing that Xavier's ever said.
That's the best. I need to make this my last podcast. Oh my God.
I'm speechless right now. But thank you for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you for joining us. And we know, like I say, I've said this before to other distillers, you don't have an evening that you're generally sitting around twiddling your thumbs and wondering, gee, what am I going to do? And you chose to spend some time with us, and we greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
We really know that that's not easily done, and we so heartfelt appreciate that.
Just so you know.
The invitation. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, great to see you.
We look forward to seeing you in New York again. We look forward to seeing you in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're headed to Kentucky Bourbon Festival this year for.
Oh yeah, the funny thing is, even before Heaven Hill, Steve knew about Heaven Hill. He already asked me back for next year. So I give my daughter a hard time. I'm like, I'm already asked back. So.
Yeah. Do you have a booth this year?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's too early for me to even know any of those things.
No, so I'll just talk to Randy and tell him 100% Widow Jane needs a booth there, because there's no doubt you guys need a booth there. There's one. I will put my
with this product. You definitely need a booth there.
Yeah, you're killing it.
Thank you.
Just keep up the great work. We not that I don't doubt that you will. But 19 I'm gonna get on Super Nash to fill in the blanks.
Super Nash, aka Bourbon Claws.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. So all right, so this has been a great podcast.
That about does it for the podcast. Lisa, hang around with us for the after podcast.
Yeah. So once again, good bourbon equals good friends and good times. And remember, go out there and live your life dangerously.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
Yes.
Yes. All right, we're still on YouTube.
We're still on YouTube, so act respectable.
But thank you so much.
My God, Lisa, that was an awesome podcast.
It's like I don't even know what to say to what you just did for us. I really appreciate it.
I am in awe of your experience as you related it to us. It's like, my God, what has she not done? It would be easier to enumerate, I think.
So yeah, I've been really lucky. Yeah.
But you're talented.
Yeah, that's it. You're lucky because you make your own freaking luck is the point, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Plus, you understand work ethic. I'm a plant manager of a recycling firm, and trying to pull it together during COVID is just like unbelievable. Because
I was raised by a nurse and an engineer, and so my sisters and I all, work ethic is.
They sure as hell raised you right. My father gave me a good work ethic, and I'm one of these guys that I just don't miss work no matter what. I mean, I might be leaving my desk and going to, drive the porcelain bus because I got the flu or whatever, but I don't miss work, and, work is everything, and your customers are everything, and you just don't let them down, period. and so I get that, and I certainly appreciate what you do.
Put it this way, tonight I want to quit my job as a plant manager and come work for you in Brooklyn. It's serious.
I'll buy you steel-toed boots and get you forklift certified.
You don't have to.
Good. That sounds good. I'll even volunteer to go meet the water truck.
Just so you know, I'm already forklift certified,
and I already have steel-toed boots.
And I actually train people to become forklift certified.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I have steel-toed boots, so awesome. I can bring them. So.
And I understand a little bit about business. I don't know about distilling, but I can usually make a pretty good management decision.
But what you got going there is fantastic. Just keep doing what you're doing. And your palate is, what would you say? How would you put it?
Exquisite, maybe? Yeah.
Legendary.
Yeah, it is. I am.
How the hell did
I don't know how to say it, and I don't want it to be insulting, but we are far above where I thought we would be tonight. And this is some really fantastic whiskey. And that the Decadence is just, that's like been a
decadent.
It's been decadent. It's been from a bourbon perspective, it's been a life-changing experience. It's a really, really good whiskey. My God.
All of it was.
All good. The 15 hit it out of the park. But 14 and 13, if somebody wanted to say, oh, I'm just going to give you a bottle of that, I'd say, try it. Oh, okay. I'll force myself to drink it. Oh, my God, it was good. It was all good.
So do you have any enlightenment for us?
Be nice.
If you can pronounce that completely clearly.
Enlightenment. There you go. I got it.
We've been drinking your whiskey.
Yeah, we went through.
You expect us to pronounce things clearly after we've been downing your whiskey like
I am sorry.
We have dogs at a meat market.
It's awesome to be feeling like this on a Tuesday night. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. My God, you had such a great interview with us. That's definitely one of the best, if not the best. That was just, we really appreciate it.
Just so you know, this is our first podcast with our new camera. So if you noticed, we're a lot sharper and way better lit.
Yeah.
I can tell you're well lit.
We're way better lit in more ways than one right now, just so you know.
Yeah.
Let's.
Yeah.
I think the fire is pretty well stoked.
That's pretty good. So that's awesome that you're drinking Elijah Craig. But
And that's a fine choice. That's a fine choice.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, it's kid in the candy store, right? The
Sure.
Friday before the announcement came out, I was back in Bardstown and I call or text my daughter and I'm like, it's 10:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm going to come get you in 15 minutes, put something cute on. And so we end up over it. We both had.
That's what Jeff says when he tells me to come over. Put something cute on. Believe it or not, what a coincidence. Oh my God.
So I take her, we go over to the new Heaven Hill Bourbon Experience because both of us, because it's right literally in our back doorstep, right? But we haven't been there yet. And we talked about it over the holidays and we were just too busy and everything. So I called her, I said, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm working. I said, can you, cut out for a few minutes? And so we go over there and I buy all these bottles, right? But I don't tell her, but it's also not unusual for me to buy all these bottles, right? I buy a dozen bottles or something. And she's used to that, right? And so then I'm like, let's go grab a drink. She's like, yeah, oh, that'd be great. Cause I was meeting another podcaster for lunch and later in the day. And so or later in the afternoon at 1:00. And so we go to Heaven Hill and we have a great cocktail and a great conversation with the bartenders. And I ended up ordering a couple different flights. I told her, I said, if you'll split these with me, we'll order a couple of flights because they had some really rare bottles in the bar. And so we did that. And then I invited her to come to lunch. I said, these guys are, the one podcaster had picked up 3 other podcasters on a barrel pick. And so I told her, I said, you're going to blow these guys away with your whiskey knowledge. They're going to be surprised. And so we went and had lunch with them and it was great. And and so then the next couple days later, the announcement came out. So I called her ahead of time. I called her ahead of the announcement and said, by the way, Heaven Hills, purchased us. And she, keeping this secret from my children for months was the hardest part. And so then she tells me, she's like, well, can I tell you? She was asking, she goes, can I tell my husband right now? And I'm like, my son-in-law, right? And she goes, I said, not yet. I said, yeah, you can. And she goes, well, he's with Rob Samuels. He's with Jane Bowen. And he's with the entire legal team of Maker's Mark. I said, no, you can't tell him just yet.
No fucking way.
And then they dropped the press release and I called her. I said, they've just dropped the press release. It's out. You can definitely call him and tell him, it'll be tomorrow before everybody knows. But so it was exciting, They're proud.
No, that's a really cool story.
It is.
To finish up the YouTube aspect of this. And we are going to stop recording. That was amazing.
Everybody, thanks for downloading this podcast and thanks for watching our YouTube. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you very much.
Remember, good bourbon equals good friends and good times.
Good night, folks.
The watershed story. A watershed moment might be pivotal, but it might also be quiet and fleeting. It could be a monumentous occasion, a cause for celebration, an enormous triumph, or a small daily victory. A watershed moment could be a rekindling or an observation or a gathering. Any opportunity to relish with friends and family. It's whatever you choose to cheers to, who you're gathered around, and whatever's worth celebrating. We founded Watershed Distillery on the principles of community in 2010. We wanted to live in, work in, and contribute to the community in which we grew up. We aimed to create spirits and stood apart in quality and character. Along the way, we set out to form a community of our own, one that could gather together to savor, celebrate, and enjoy good spirits and company. We've grown from a tiny little still and 2 guys in jumpsuits to a dedicated team of over 40 people and 2 much larger stills. If you're ever in the area, stop by so we can introduce you to our team and pour you some of our award-winning bourbon. Creating it was our watershed moment, but we want to hear about yours.